to our second panel, which is titled, where is our title? Cultivating an Ecosystem of Creators. And I'm so excited that we're closing our program with this particular discussion, which is all about the neighborhood that we are currently located in, which is Westville. And a lot of the themes that we've been hearing, one, you're going to get to see what it's like, for example, to differentiate in a city of many neighborhoods. But also, we talked a lot today about what it's like to drive people somewhere from external influencers shining a light, or the state, Department of Tourism shining a light on your community. Here we're going to learn about a neighborhood where all of that social influencing and digital interaction bubbled forth right here. So I would like to ask each of our panelists to please introduce yourselves, tell us your role, what you do here, and when you came to Westville.
Okay, so I'm Lizzy Donius. I'm the executive director of the Westville Village Renaissance Alliance, which is a Connecticut Main Street community for 20 years, I think. I came to Westville 16 years ago when I moved. I think I'm literally across the street from here, from Chicago, from Berlin, from New York, and landed in an apartment where my husband had gotten his first teaching job. With a wonderful woman who is running our giant puppet and people making mayhem parade and workshops that Pat referenced earlier, and immediately got pulled into this incredible community that we have here in Westville. And then bought a house, bought another house that's only a quarter of a mile from the first house, and then took the job when my friend Chris, who had the Connecticut Main Street Wover job before me, had to move to Ohio, and I was helping him with events, and then I started working at Wover. So I'm a Westville true believer, as are, I think, everybody on this stage. So I'm going to hand it over to Melissa now.
Hi, my name is Melissa Gonzales, and I moved my vintage shop, Vintanthro, to Westville from another New Haven neighborhood called East Rock about 5 years ago.
Hi, my name is Dakoulas. I run Westville General. It's been open for 2 years, but before that I owned Strangeways, which was also in the village. It did so well here that I moved to a bigger space downtown, but I opened that 8 years ago. So yeah, I've been in Westville doing many things for 8 years.
Hi everybody, I'm Mistina Hascom. I own and run a Lotta studio and Western Arts, which is just down the street. I too was employed by Westville Village Renaissance Alliance, did the event coordinating for the village for 2 years before we got our hands on a vacant building that we turned into artist studios.
So I think that there are two particular factors that are so interesting about Westville that in some ways predates social media. And I would love for each of you to comment on them, but also maybe bring it back to this idea of plugging into the online world, which is one, that Westville has a very specific character, a vibe that is very much what it is. In fact, Lizzy and I were just saying that the lyric is, this, look around you, this is in some ways exemplifying what we mean by the Westville vibe. But also what's interesting about Westville is it's a true ecosystem, and each of you represent sort of different parts of it, and one of the things that I think is very unique about Westville is this deep collaboration, coordination, and support that you all give to each other. So I would love for you each to sort of reflect on that based on what you do here.
Yeah, I think the vibe, when I describe it, I try to say inclusive fun. Fun's a big part of what we're doing. It is family friendly too, but it's a little edgy, a little artsy, a little scrappy. And then like community is the word that I come back to, that predates social media. The community of the people who are involved in making Westville a great place to be, but also the fact that it's an accessible community. It's something that you can become a part of by showing up, as Pat had said earlier. And I think that's something that people crave in the real world, and it's something that people connect to on social media as well. So what we try to do is take our real world community ties and figure out how to translate that vibe, that connectedness, that fun onto social media, and I think that's, I'm gonna pass it on.
I would just like to add that I think the spirit of collaboration that you see in Westville is due in large part to community, but also friendships that predate all of us being in Westville. So Misty I've known for many years, same with Alex. Beyond the collaboration that we do with our businesses, we also have friendships that sort of grew out of our figuring out our businesses in their early stages.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of collaboration here, to clarify, I'm probably going to talk about Strangeways a lot more than the general store, just because Strangeways was here for a lot longer, but those are both my businesses. Currently, Westville General is what's here, but when I had Strangeways, that was my first business, and I was looking for a storefront. I started online, and I remember people mentioning Westville, and this would be like, Misty, you know, come up to Westville, see what the fair's about. There's storefronts, there's artists, you know, and I was kind of like, to be honest, I was like, I don't know this area. I lived in Worcester Square. You know, Westville is almost like its own ecosystem, which, you know, kind of exists in its own, but I think now everyone knows about it. But my point is, when I showed up here, I was like, wow, there's an amazing space, like Lyric Hall, where I've actually put on a bunch of events, you know, pre-COVID, and when I had Strangeways here, you know, I knew Misty was looking at artist studios, and I carried artist work. This is amazing. I knew about Art Walk, and just a lot of things that Wilbur was putting on. And I think when you're trying to find a store, you don't want to be in the middle of nowhere. You want to be where there's other things happening. And I knew if I could get my customer, which is largely online, to come here, they would then have a reason to stay, and then that would just give a reason to come back. And I think even just not actively trying to collaborate, but just seeing all the other things people are doing around here was naturally just like a push for me to want to be here, and I haven't left.
They drank the Kool-Aid. They showed up. Yeah, I think that, you know, why Westville, right? There's a lot of freedoms that we have here in the village that sometimes there's some barricades or hoops that you have to go through in order to be in town. Things that you have to structure your business a little bit different. And we have a lot of freedom as creators and business owners here in Westville, and that's very helpful. So in the first panel discussion, I loved that, I believe you said it, you're like, just let them do their thing. Right? Like, that is so important when you put a ton of, you can get guidelines and you know, deliver what you need, but the idea that we have a lot of freedom here in Westville to randomly put together a flair fair, right? Like to do pop-ups, to do open studios. Like we've got support of a nonprofit entity, and we're able to just kind of do what we need to do in order to have our creative freedom, which makes us just want to do more.
I'd love to return the mic to the two store owner entrepreneurs to talk a bit more about sort of two pieces of it. The first one is the way that Westville's reputation and how it expressed itself online, perhaps visually, was a draw to locate. But also, how did you convert your online consumers into, in real life? I was going to do that, and the acronym, and I was like, I'm not going to pull it off authentically, so I'm not going to do that. How did you convert them to come to an actual brick and mortar?
Okay. I'll start probably just because, so my business started out online. I think it's, I'm just gonna like help myself, but I think it's a very smart thing to do if you're able to start online and then find a storefront. Everything I sold was very small and non-perishable from the start, and so I knew I could ship it pretty easily. And first, just find out if there was an audience for what I was trying to sell. You know, committing to a 1, 2, 3, 5-year lease, and then realizing, oh, no one actually wants what I'm trying to sell to them. I did online for a year, doing a bunch of pop-ups around town, and I did one at your store actually when it was in East Rock. I don't remember if I did pop-ups in Westville, but based on what I had done online and with my pop-ups in New Haven, it gave me the opportunity to feel comfortable that I wanted to have a storefront. And I think that online is obviously a necessity now for businesses and for retail, but I do think people miss interacting and seeing things in person and touching them and talking to the store owner and bringing their friends and then walking around. So I felt like I always wanted that interaction, but I definitely balance it out with the online store. And so sort of like people would buy online and they would be like, I'd like come to the store after, if you liked it, online and on Instagram, then like come and actually browse it. And I think they kind of worked together pretty well. But again, I think it worked well too because there were other things for them to do here. If I was like, come to this random building in the middle of nowhere, I don't know if people would, but I would always post about events happening or other businesses or coffee shops in the area. And I think that was like, all right, now people can go here, we can do this, we can walk around, we can go to the park. And yeah, I think that helps.
Alex is absolutely right. As someone who I started my business primarily under the umbrella of online retailers like eBay and Etsy, places like that, and then did the pop-up model for many years. I had a following, and then opened up a brick and mortar first in East Rock and then in Westville. The way that you get those followers to be as invested in your brick and mortar as they were in your online presence is by having your business in a place where there are other things to do. The synergy that happens in being in Westville and having so many other amazing, fun businesses all in the same place is so helpful. So whether it's the general store or an event that Lotta Studio's doing, or people gathering at Pistachio, or the Cat Cafe, or going to Camacho, or being in the area for a concert at the music bowl, that's the way that you keep people invested in your business, because then it becomes not just about your brick and mortar, but the vibe of the neighborhood and all the places that people can then go to after they've come to the business that they've been following for years.
I'm just going to add one thing to that, which is that every single thing that Melissa just mentioned has grown in Westville in the last 6 or 7 years. Nothing you mentioned was here 6 or 7 years ago. So it is a thing for other Main Street managers to think about when you're recruiting businesses, people who have existing online businesses, they're looking for brick and mortar and are interested in not working all day alone in a shop, but having people that, like-minded people nearby, you can create an ecosystem like that.
And actually, Lizzy, I was going to pass the mic right back to you because I know that our audience is made up of a lot of different stakeholders in a downtown or a Main Street, but many of them are also involved in other things. They may be part of the Chamber of Commerce, they may be part of the city's economic development department. What is the benefit that you all have in having a Main Street program here? Like, I think for some, they may not even understand sort of how you are helping to pull all of this together.
That's a really good question. I think that the main thing is there's a dedicated human that gets up every day and thinks about Westville, like just literally like, is anybody walking down the street? Like you guys were all coming today, I was like, oh my God, there's garbage. My guys, the garbage were here yesterday, they're not here today. How's Melissa doing? How's Alex doing? Like, is that restaurant going to be okay? Like, is the social? Are we sharing? Are we posting? Is the dedicated effort of just thinking about how to keep it physically vibrant? Like, that's what I consider the goal. And I think every downtown should have that, and the model and the support that we've gotten from you guys over the years and has made a huge difference in focusing the efforts for me for thinking about what works. So we do a ton of events here because we are that kind of community. But as the events are happening, we put a lot of money, like relatively speaking, which is actually very little money, into supporting the creatives that are in this community, amplifying them. Misty's work, we have a videographer that works here, and I pay them what I can to cover all that stuff, and then we blast it, that's our social media strategy. This is who we are, these are actual humans here doing fun things. If you come here, there will be humans walking around doing fun things, and you can be with them, and we put that out there. And if Melissa makes it, I don't think about if it's a perfectly on message, I just share it. You know, and if somebody down the street does it, I share it, and then I hope that they'll share our stuff too, and we build the brand that way, so that these guys are my influencers, basically.
Okay, but specifically about how Mover helps support us, right? The idea that if we have an event that we want to do that kind of grows bigger than what we can manage, right? So the idea that she can help us write grants for things under a nonprofit, she can help us pull insurance for certain things that our businesses wouldn't cover, and she can have communications with city officials that I would just cry if I had to do that, right? So it's like Lizzy kind of is this shield that we get to be creative behind, and that alleviates a lot of pressure off of us as creatives and business owners to be able to have to take care of it all on ourselves.
I'm gonna add a short thing.
Add away.
I'll just be honest and say I don't necessarily know what everything that y'all do. I just know it happens. I don't know how the sausage gets made, but I think, you know, I know that the sausage is there. And so when I came to check out the area, you know, I felt this community, I felt this artistic, you know, expression, I felt opportunity. I think naturally Westville just has, like, because of its history, like a walkability that I think is very, you know, unique, and I think we've kind of taken advantage of that. That's all I want to say.
I have two things. One is that I saw firsthand in my previous neighborhood what it looks like when there is no unifying entity like WVRA to support all the businesses. We had the foot traffic, we were in a highly populated neighborhood, but there wasn't any synergy happening because each business was on its own. And so that's the real value, I think, that has helped us succeed. And the other thing is WVRA has a website. They have a newsletter that they send out. And so there's just built-in advertising and marketing that sort of creates a bigger impact than any one of us can on our own, with the exception, I think, of Alex, who has on Instagram a huge following. So you have a pretty big audience that you can depend on. And I think for me, WVRA is sort of that magnifier.
I still depend on WVRA.
Actually, I would love to, I don't know if we'll start with you, Alex, or if it'll be everybody sort of around you, like satellites. But there were a lot of, I know, ideas in Connecticut Main Street that got us really excited to do this particular summit. One of them was when I came and visited and walked Westville with Lizzy, and she specifically was talking about Alex and Strangeways, and actually, Melissa, you alluded to it as well, that Alex, you built this enormous following prior to opening a brick and mortar, and I'm curious about the ripple effects of that. You know, we've been talking about the built-in marketing, the creatives, and that it brought people like the two of you as entrepreneurs to locate a brick and mortar here. What does it look like, sort of the opposite effect now that you're here, and what is the ripple effect of these audiences following these entrepreneurs?
Alex, do you want to start, or should I say what I think? Okay, I see it all day long, and Alex does have a tremendous number of followers, and Melissa actually has a pretty high following. The Cat Cafe has 14,000 followers. The Pistachio Cafe has I think 17. Some of the individual artists in Misty's building have tens of thousands. So those people, I see them, now that I know those numbers, then I see, oh, you can see visually that people are going into pistachio, like people I don't recognize. We used to know every single person, almost literally, and then all of a sudden there's, 100 people that I don't know, I see every day. And so you see the physical effect of that marketing. People will come to Strange Ways, they park in the park, you can see them, they're looking around, they haven't been here before. They don't know how to use the machine at the parking lot. But then if they get to Alex's store, they come out of Alex's store and they look across the street and they see the sign for you or pistachio. So that once we get somebody here, if they come for one place, then it really matters what's here and how it's presented, because that's how you keep them and get them to come back and get them to walk around. This is a little bit of a digression. We talk a lot about parking. I'm sure you all realize there's nowhere to park in Westville. So like when we had no businesses in Westville, I still had to talk about parking all the time. Everybody's worried about parking. Well, we're going to get businesses or nobody's going to be able to park, nobody's going to come. Did not happen. We got the businesses and people were more willing to park farther away because they weren't trying to get out of here in 5 minutes. They were coming to hang out. And I got to stop talking about parking. I think I'm going to have to talk about it again when the apartments go in. But for now, nobody asks me about parking, because when they come someplace that has multiple places they want to visit, they're expecting to walk for 3 minutes and not pull up in front of the place and run out. Right, that's a little of a digression.
Okay, I have a lot to say, but I'll try to say it all. On the topic of social media, so as I've said, I had Strange Ways here. It currently isn't here, but that's what gets brought up a lot. And I have Westville General Store. When I started Strange Ways, it was very focused on being online. I have a background in graphic design and kind of online stuff anyways. I used to design for Commerce and Puma. I was like very tapped into what I thought was like trendy and cool, and you can reach a wider audience than just people who are going to be at your store in New Haven. So I think kind of just what I was trying to do grew the online presence, because it wasn't necessarily what was happening in New Haven, it wasn't necessarily happening anywhere else in the country. If you Google patches, we're one of the top 5 searches in Google. And that was all due to me just working on the website, doing Instagram, sending stuff out to people sometimes, but then people just buying stuff from us, and then we'd end up in like a magazine or something. So it's very cool, a lot of it was luck, but when people say, how do you have so many followers? It was, definitely my background, but it kind of just happened based on I was carrying trendy stuff, and so people want to talk about that right away. Did well here, having a storefront was really cool too, because even though we were doing things online, there started to be kind of a pushback of, well, now people want to, shop in person again. They don't want to just see everything online, or they see all these people on Instagram that I carry, and now you can actually see it in person, which is an aspect too. But I bring that up because now I have the general store, and I had to start over like 2 years ago, and it doesn't have 82,000 followers. I don't actually know. I think maybe it's like 3,500 followers, which is still like good, and we still push people to come in the same way. There's an online store, but something not as popular. When you sell food, there's a lot of things you don't ship out because it's going to melt or break or something. But starting over 2 years ago versus nine years ago, I've had Strange Ways who I started online. It's a really different reality. Like, Instagram is very different than it was, and they don't really push content as much as they used to. If they don't get money off of it, they don't want to show it to people, or if it's not going viral and a million people are seeing it, then it's almost like you're either super viral or you're not being seen at all. TikTok is very popular, but my cutesy village general store doesn't really adhere to dancing and like stuff like that. So I guess I'm saying it's like an uphill battle, and it makes me even more appreciative of like having the store that does now rely a lot more on in-store sales and like foot traffic that are walking by to be in Westville. Versus, yeah, I mean, online is just, I think it's getting more and more complicated, and even as someone that, people say, I do really well at, like, it's tough. Like, I don't necessarily say I knew what I was doing before, but I definitely don't know what I'm doing now.
Just to add on to what Alex is saying, when I saw the timeline of social media earlier in the morning, I think that Alex and I started our businesses when Instagram was still easy to get seen on, and I think that played a huge part in us developing the followings we had early on. And like him, now I am not an adopter of TikTok wholeheartedly yet, but it is looking like in order for us to continue to promote our businesses on our own and get that same kind of following, or to grow our following at the same pace, you kind of have to have your foot in that door. Otherwise, you are relying more on foot traffic, other businesses, collaborations, and supporting each other.
I do have one thing to say about marketing in general. It comes back to the trust issue and the letting go, and I think this goes for municipalities and for Main Street people, is that like the TikTok thing, bringing up the TikTok thing, these guys are all younger than me. And so Instagram was, I did all the Facebook events, which worked great for Woodruff for a long time, and now it's, we still put it up, but it doesn't work the same way. So Instagram didn't come naturally to me, and I was smart enough, I have another young man who's an artist who works with me as well, to just like, these guys have like, she has the login to the, she does not work for Woodruff. She knows how to post on Instagram. I do it like too. We all do it.
There's 3 of us that post to social media.
Yeah. And as the director, I don't police it either. Like if I love everything. I love most of it. Most of it I would never think of. Every now and then there's something like, oh, it comes and it goes. Like the better thing is just have the stuff consistently up so there's stuff for people to look at. And if you have multiple brains posting, it's not dull. It's not dull. It's not the one graphic that you made in Canva. It's, if Misty takes great photos at the basketball court, is that perfectly on message for getting people into the stores? No. Is it awesome? Does it look so cool? Do you wanna be there? Yes. So like it's broadening your vision of what images communicate what your community is, and letting go of having to have a very, very strategic marketing vision like Anthony has, which is terrific for the state, but maybe doesn't give a fuller picture of a community.
We're showing a lifestyle.
I do think, to piggyback off what Lizzie's saying, that it's not the Woodruff feed or the Westville feed isn't necessarily going to be a perfectly curated feed like you would see from an influencer, but it does authentically reflect what's happening now in Westville. And I think what makes us unique is that we are sort of standing on that line between totally sacrificing ourselves to social media and also putting between that and putting the actual time and energy into our brick and mortars and into our neighborhood and community, because that is where the people are. Those are, we can't ignore them in favor of social media. We kind of have to have a nice balance between the two.
I'll just say, another reason why I love Westville Village, and I like calling it Westville Village, is like it's a village. It's made up of many different personalities and businesses. And I remember when I opened Strangeways, which was pretty, it's like kind of punk and very like LGBTQ forward and very like self-expressive. And I remember I made like a post or something a long time ago, like Weird Westville. And I just thought it was funny, and like someone got mad at me, like, stop trying to make Westville weird. And I wrote back to the person, I was like, Westville is weird. Like, there's a bunch of people here doing weird stuff, and it's not because I'm here now that it's weird. I'm like, no, but it's like, I was gonna say the cat cafe, but they opened after me, but it's like, there's a place where you can just go pet cats. Like, it's weird, and even the business that I've been here for many years before any of us were here, it's like it's a community of many different personalities and offerings isn't the right word, but it is a village, and I think that that's also why it works. And it was trying to be very, I'm just gonna diss the shops at Yale right now. It was trying to be very like an outdoor mall where you can find everything you need that's all like corporate brands. It's like, we don't wanna do that. Like everything should be, its own, like stand on its own, but together it makes it all better. And I think that that is really great about the village.
Yeah, and just a word about the cat cafe, which is so funny. My son went there for like his birthday. We have 2 cats. What are you doing? We go sit on the couch and pet your cat. It's a different cat. It's a rent-a-cat. But I think, listening to a lot of what everybody's been saying today, we are obviously talking about social media as the theme, but really, like, we're living in a world of oversaturation, and what we're finding, like, the themes are authenticity, but also people are really craving the experiential. And so I would love to hear some reflection on, like, look and feel. How are you taking a visual medium that's digital and infusing it with, how are you creating your physical spaces that translate to this medium, and then also get people to want to inhabit the physical space? We're getting I was about to say meta, but then I don't want to do a special like plug for any particular platform, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm going to hand it to the lady with the print shop.
Thank you. So our shop is vintage, primarily vintage. We do have modern gifts, candles and cards, so not everything is secondhand. But we do our best to curate the shop in a way that makes it feel like a boutique experience rather than a thrift store. So one of the benefits of having a shop that is curated and beautiful when you walk in is that people naturally want to take pictures of things and share them. We do have a small corner in the back with a bunch of old telephones and a little wire sign that says hello that people always photograph themselves in and occasionally share. But that sort of makes our life easier in terms of social media, because it's always better when the content is coming from the customers and not just strictly from us. So that is one of the ways that we use our environment to sort of help us with social media.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point of you constantly telling everyone how cool your space is or how cool your store is and always posting about it. It's like, okay, we get it. Like, obviously you love your store, you own it. And so it's really cool when you do see other people posting about it or tagging the location, or if they share a story, and they can, tag you and you can reshare it. It also just shows that people are coming into the space and it's not, just you, being, it could be an empty store, but you're posting all the time. So seeing people in it, I think is really helpful. The space I'm in for Westville General is very small, so there was never, even when I was Strange Ways, an opportunity for sort of like photo op things like that. I mean, people would take photo of the product and just kind of post it, which is cool. But when I moved, I specifically wanted a space that was a lot bigger. And I will say, I tried to stay in Westville, but there was all tiny spaces, so it wasn't going to work. Otherwise I would have, but I moved downtown, and now we have a mirror that has like a saying on it. We have like 4 murals, and you can take photos in front of them or just take photos of them. You can just take a photo of, like, we have a rainbow ramp. Like, there's definitely was thought to be like, I want people to take photos of this and share it. And that was part of it. When I transformed Strange Ways into Westville General, again, it's not really big enough to like have photo op moments, but I also really wanted to get across that it is a different story, it is a different vibe. It is, I'll say, just as some background, like, this is Westville Village. It used to be a lot of antiques, and it's like very historic. It's on the historic registry, right? Yeah, so I was like, why isn't there a general store here? I'm from New Hampshire, I lived in Mass, now I'm in Connecticut. I'm like, this just makes sense here. So that's kind of why I was like, when I'm moving, I want this to be here, and I guess I'll just like try it myself. But I wanted people to know that it was not Strange Ways, because it's kind of confusing, because I still own it, and it's still the same layout. So even though there wasn't like photo op opportunities, I guess what I'm trying to say is like there was very intentional ways to make it look appealing and make it look obvious of what it is now. And there's flat wallpaper, and we had a local artist there to do a beautiful mural of West Rock and the village and like Edgewood Park, sorry, just got Edgerton and Edgewood mixed up for a second. But it looks like a cabin inside, and even if people aren't taking photos of it, I think I know that they like walking around in it. And there's nothing more that I hate as someone who does like shopping and who does like going into spaces that are creative and that people build themselves. Like, you want it to feel unique, and I hate when I go into a store and it's just like white walls and gray floors. I'm not gonna say it's ugly, but it's not what I like.
Yeah, so we're obsessed with visuals, digitally and in person. So we're constantly creating elements like that that we find appealing, and therefore are a draw for other people who are walking by and just look in the window. Another thing that I wanted to touch on was the Range Days event. So we hosted, basically put a large call out to junior photographers. It was like, hey, we want to throw together this thing called Range Days and have photographers come here. We'll provide models, we'll provide outlets to stylists, and basically just created this community of people who were here specifically to take pictures. And we elevated it to, I mean, I'd like to say professional photographers. Like, they weren't using their cell phones, like they were using good cameras. So we marketed the event itself to photographers to come to Westville and document things for us. And in return, I would provide them, my professional assistants with their photography work, show them how to light things, build little sets in our studios, and give them spaces to kind of play with studio lighting or different type of light modification tools that would be used out in public. And we had people all the way from, I don't know, there was people that came down from New Hampshire and from Maine and had just been following like our Instagram, and were excited to be a part of something that we were doing, because we get requests for people to come in and do like studio tours or visits or assistants or internships or something like that. So you kind of made an event out of people coming to the studio, and then that benefited the community. And so then these photographers that would post the pictures, they would tag Lotta Studio, they would tag whoever the stylist was, they would tag the model and the village itself. And so it generated all of this content that we didn't have to pay anything to produce.
I would add on that Range Days, which was really awesome, that those were younger photographers too. So they are really keyed in and people that, we wouldn't necessarily be reaching. I also remember when Camacho Garage opened, they had a day where they just invited food bloggers and people they fed them. They didn't pay for those placements. The restaurant people were curious about it. And I think they had about 50 journalists come. There were like a couple of journalists, and then there were influencers, like the ladies that were here earlier, and they got like a free margarita and dinner, and then they all posted about it. So, yeah, Mohammed Hafez at Pistachio Cafe, like if you go up there, it's beautiful. There's multiple places to take pictures, and that built their business really fast. I don't think that Mohammed had a media day specifically, but I have personally gotten to eat food that like bloggers were in there taking pictures of it, and they couldn't stay, and they were like, I was like working on my computer. So like some places, if you do it well enough, they will just the ladies who were here earlier, sometimes there's 20% of that is that they are going somewhere that they think other people are going to be interested in. So you can generate organic content. And organic content always feels authentic. I'm not saying it's the only kind of content, but it's the only kind of content we can afford right now, and it really does feel authentic, and you maximize it by having online community relationships that are similar to your in-life community relationships. So it's something you wouldn't be able to follow Misty's page, maybe Alice's page, but not the Westville one, and your page very long before you had a sense of that store, photo studio in space in this place called Westville. Like that message comes across a little bit to everybody, and again, it comes back to, it doesn't matter how they get here, they come to Lyric Hall, they They come to Westville for the Cat Cafe from Fairfield County because there's a birthday party, and once they're here, then you have to have the goods.
But that is really interesting that, you know, again, a lot of it is boiling down to collaboration, because to your point, it isn't a business that's just talking about itself as if it existed nowhere, and that all of you are sort of happily committed to ensuring that people understand that you're part of sort of a larger picture, because that's part of what is making you cool, and it's also what's making Westville cool. So it's just a circular cool economy.
One of my favorite taglines for Westville is Westville, committed until you're committed. And that just kind of spreads out. Yeah.
I want to give you all an opportunity to ask some questions, because this is the like rubber hits the road practitioner opportunity. So I don't know if someone from Connecticut Main Street can help with the mic so that I don't fall down this last part of the program.
Those are cute shoes though, Michelle.
Well, you know,
Yeah, worth the risk.
I know you just can't.
Thank you. So I wanted to ask, a couple of times today it's come up, like just talking about utilizing Facebook events in the past, and then kind of coming to this realization of like, oh, it's not working anymore. And I just wanted to ask the panel, like, what is your preferred process now for promoting events? And also just gauging frequency, but also content of events. Like the idea of the range days is so unique, and that kind of, it seems to me like that comes from seeing a need in the community or seeing an interest. Yeah, I'm gonna stop there. There's like layers of questions, but just process for promoting events and your preferred method.
Sure. I mean, specifically, like one of my favorite events that I help a lot with is the fashion show every spring.
the Art Walk fashion show.
So one of the things with that event specifically is you're curating your list of designers. Each one of those designers has their own following as well. So me as the event programmer, I'm going to make it as simple as I can for these people to advertise the event themselves. None of that comes solely from us. Like the beauty about collaboration is that you have to invite everybody to the table and make it as easy as you can. So whether that's sharing a design element, making sure that it's specific for the dimensions of all platforms, so that whoever you're giving that content to doesn't have to try to think about how to make a rectangular image fit into a square box. And making sure that you tag people with everything, right? So another one of the more successful events that I do is the Anti-Mall, which happens every December. And we've got 15 local vendors that come into the studio, set up, and with that we start promotion about a month before, and you just provide all of the materials needed at all of the dimensions at all of the sizes, and take care of any printing needs that might be there. So I do still feel like printing is relevant. Social media is definitely by far the most well used, but for us specifically surrounding Westville, we've got half a dozen schools. So these are all kids that are not on social media that also should be invited to the event that we're doing. So printing out little flyers to make sure that they go into the schools, and you're not just relying on one element there. And being able to have consistency throughout all platforms makes it more visually recognizable, right? So you've got the same content that you're printing, the same content on Instagram, the same content on Facebook, and the same content printed and posters on all of our windows. And so I think that comes down to is like collaboration, making sure everybody is sharing the event, making sure the event is relevant for the area that you're in, and why is it cool? Because there's beer and a good time and great passion, so just come.
Yeah, I think Misty touched on a lot of good points. I think consistency with, sharing the same flyer with everyone that's involved, so you're all sharing the same thing and not posting different stuff that might look like different events is definitely important. But At Strangers, we do a lot of events, and again, that's part of the reason why I moved to a bigger space. And I think unfortunately, you kind of have to do everything though. Like we still do Facebook events, we do Eventbrite, we print out flyers. We actually have a separate account for in-store events on Instagram because the other one's so popular that a lot of them aren't local. So we create like a hyper-local account. So it's like we don't want to be telling people in California to come to our store. They're not going to. And it kind of like also makes people not want to follow the other account because they're like, you just keep posting this stuff I'm never gonna be able to attend. So we have a separate account for events.